on an uptown train, doors open. As she walks in, she's soaking. Caught in the rain, her skin shines like crystalline. Eyes meet, you know where this goes. Her keys in, they take off their clothes, they're soaking. Caught in a dream, her skin shines like crystalline. The problem with believers, they let anyone in the door. The problem with deceivers is all the bodies buried under the floorboards. New sirens would sing from rocks off the cliffs by the sea. The monsters with waiting teeth, their skin shines crystalline. Rush out on an uptown train, doors open. As she walks in, she's soaking. Caught in the rain, her skin shines like crystalline.
We're live. I'm Ronnie Harris of the Limitless channel, and I'm live streaming with Jason Laufenberg of Awake Souls. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just checking the audio. It sounded a little bit low. Looks like everything's good. How's everyone in the chat doing? It's a nice day. It was calm. It was relaxing. Some clouds just chilled out. They kind of like hung there for a few hours. You know, we chilled out, had the sauna treatment and hot tubs. Resting the muscles and taking the time off. So I'm excited for tonight. I love the book, The Wisdom of Solomon. So give me it was a pretty busy week. We did quite a bit of streams, brother. Why don't you give me a rundown on how your week went and how you're feeling about everything that we experienced?
Yeah, it was busy. We know that when we get into it, when we throw something out there and then somebody responds, we feel obligated to respond, and so that it went back and forth, and it's like finally over now. So we don't need to just keep doing play-by-play on that Flattoberfest super spreader event. We just called it out. This is what we do. We put it out there. Now we sit back and wait and see whether or not our prediction on this, what we are seeing, the ties, the connections, if it all ties together. There's weird connections. I don't know if you saw this yet, but in the headlines, all of a sudden, Oreo cookies is announcing that they have a bunker up by where they like keep the seed vaults to keep Oreos in the coming apocalypse. And it's making headlines, and we just saw that whole like Oreo ceremony that was taking place with Mark Sargent and Max. So I don't know, just weird connections. When I see stuff like that, it seems too weird to be a coincidence.
Well, we know that Mark works with the mainstream and he works with YouTube itself, and if there's an agenda being pushed, that Mark's going to weave it through. Like he kept mentioning BLM and all the other nonsense, right? Black Lives Matter had no place at a Flattoberfest. I find it interesting that you're seeing connections to that. So, okay, today's the 1st of November. We've got the supposed asteroids possibility for tomorrow, is it?
I've got a couple tabs before we get into the reading. I just wanted to bring that up in people's recall that November 2nd was the date that Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying that an asteroid could hit Earth. This made mainstream media new.
But it's too small to do any damage, is that right?
Too small. And then there was Astromut. So, yeah, that's tomorrow. That's the day that they've been saying should be an asteroid hit. 3 potential impact points, they say, right? So, I mean, it's just, none of it makes sense. They're saying it's refrigerator size, but they're saying 3 different impact points.
Yeah. Well, because there's supposedly that Oort cloud or whatever it's traveling with the asteroid. It's like an asteroid belt with it. So then after that, we've got the election. Is my sound too high? Turn that down. It sounded a little bit loud. We have the election coming up, right?
Yeah, so the third's the election here in the States, and that's set up to be a total shit show, I guess. They're not gonna be naming a president. It's just gonna go into a total mess. So we'll see how they play that all out. But if they do pop off something tomorrow, like some big explosion, so everybody remembers and understands, Ronnie and I understand the cosmology of this world to be a 3-dimensional space, a flat floor. Everything's plotted in a 3-dimensional space, like in a simulation or a realm, spiritual realm, whatever you want to, whatever term fits you better. But so we don't believe in outer space. We see that it's all CGI. It's all Hollywood films. It's science fiction propaganda, and but then why is it that we're talking about asteroids, right? Because that's part of the whole space narrative. So we talk about them because that's what they call what the Bible says is coming as far as judgment's concerned, and in the end times, in the Great Tribulation. It says that a burning mountain is going to be hurled down from heaven into the ocean, and it's going to make a cataclysmic event. So we see the parallels between that and asteroids. So when they talk about asteroids, we see the biblical fulfillment in it. But what we see them doing right now is a false flag style psyop, one that so many times we've called out the hoaxes, hoax, 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 psyop, 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 psyop. But there is a such thing as a false flag, and those are things where they actually do sacrifice people, right? They
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So would they set off bombs and say that these were asteroids to play like a biblical fulfillment from a satanic point of view? Run these false flag psyops in order to say that, you know, these things are the biblical end times and not actually the ones that are coming from heaven, from the Creator, the real big events, right?
Yeah, there's multiple things that could happen. They've faked a lot of stuff over the years. A lot of history's been rewritten wrong. And we've got our eyes keenly open and aware and watching, and we're going to be, you know, if anything goes off, we're going to be here covering it and exposing and bringing light to it the best that we can. That's what we do. We are the Light Brothers. So yeah, that's that. I didn't know if there was anybody with any specific questions. I don't see too much happening in the chat. We always have a lot quieter, slower, more easy-paced day on Sunday when we go live, which is nice because it was a lot of work lately. We've been at it. I guess that's it, brother. If you want to screen share some tabs, start it off.
Right.
I'll
let me get my camera away. You wanna
sure.
say hello to everybody?
Yeah, we got Bronick, Mimi. Thanks for coming, Mimi. Yahawa's daughter. It's a slow night tonight. Everybody's just chilling, like usual. It's an interesting book we'll be reading. We haven't read this one yet, so it should be super interesting. And I'm still deciding if I want to put music in with it or not. We'll see how we feel. You've muted.
All right. So we pretty much talked through the tabs that I had for November 2nd. I don't know that we need to say too much more about that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Gonna make this bigger. Yeah. So we got the Wisdom of Solomon. And do you have anything to say about Solomon before we get into reading this?
Well, in my opinion, you know, it's easy to retrospectively look back at the decisions that Solomon made. He was the one that created the temple that the whole entire realm, you know, brought gifts unto and worshipped. So he had a huge role. He was very wise. I think if he had have asked for a little bit more love and maybe more guidance instead of just the wisdom, we might have had a different outcome in the book. But I'm a big fan of his early years and the things that he did to build up the kingdom and to have Yahweh's name spread throughout the realm. He did a lot, if not more than anyone else in the respect.
Yeah, if he had asked for his sexual desires to be curbed a little bit, he might have survived, gone through this situation a little better, eh?
Yeah, we could go over different things that he might have done. But he did bring some nasty stuff into the realm. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Just that, you know, he has great things about him and he has things that were really bad, right? So much like all of us do, right?
Yeah, so interject as you want to, brother. I guess it's about an hour-long read. So everybody just sit back, relax, and let's check out the Wisdom of Solomon. It reads, "Love righteousness, all you who are judges of the earth. Think of the Lord with a good mind. Seek him in singleness of heart, because he is found by those who don't put him to the test and is manifested to those who trust him. For crooked thoughts separate from Yahweh. His power convicts when it is tested and exposes the foolish, because wisdom will not enter into a soul that devises evil, nor dwell in a body that is enslaved by sin." So I just want to stop here and say that there's a couple requirements for wisdom to dwell with you. So it says real clearly here that wisdom will not enter into a soul that devises evil. So if you're plotting wicked things, you're not going to get wisdom. It's not coming. Nor dwell in a body that is enslaved by sin. So you have to purify your body for wisdom to dwell in it. For Holy Spirit of discipline will flee deceit, and will depart from thoughts that are without understanding, and will be ashamed when unrighteousness has come in. For wisdom is a spirit who loves man, and she will not hold a blasphemer guiltless for his lips. I also want to jump in here and point out that wisdom is often represented in the feminine. Right? So it went from wisdom is a spirit who loves man, and then she, it's given the feminine, will not hold a blasphemer guiltless for his lips, because Yahweh is witness of his inmost self, and is a true overseer of his heart, and a hearer of his tongue. Because the Spirit of the Lord has filled the world, and that which holds all things together knows what is said. Therefore, no one who utters unrighteous things will be unseen, neither will justice, when it convicts, pass him by. Just pointing out, everybody, here that there's nothing unrighteous that goes unseen. If you think that you're doing something in secret, you're nuts. For in his counsels the ungodly will be searched out, and the sound of his words will come to the Lord to bring his lawless deeds to conviction. Because a jealous ear listens to all things, and the noise of murmurings is not hidden. Beware then of unprofitable murmuring, and keep your tongue from slander, because no secret utterance will go on its way void, and lying mouth destroy a soul. Don't court death in the air of your life. Don't draw destruction upon yourselves by the works of your hands, because Yahweh didn't make death, neither does he delight when the living perish. For he created all things that they might have being. The generative powers of the world are wholesome, and there is no poison of destruction in them, nor has Hades royal dominion upon them. For righteousness is immortal, but ungodly men by their hands and their words summon death. Deeming him a friend, they pined away. They made a covenant with him, because they are worthy to belong with him. For they said within themselves, with unsound reasoning, our life is short and sorrowful. There is no healing when a man comes to his end, and no one has ever known who has released from Hades. Because we were born by mere chance, and hereafter we will be as though we had never been. Because the breath in our nostrils is smoke, and reason is a spark kindled by the beating of our heart, which being extinguished, the body will be turned into ashes, and the spirit will be dispersed as thin air. So they were saying, we die and nothing happens. We just turn to dust, our spirits disappear, that's the end. Our name will be forgotten in time. No one will remember our works. Our life will pass away as the traces of a cloud, and will be scattered as in a mist, when it is chased by the rays of the sun and overcome by its heat. For our allotted time is the passing of a shadow, and our end doesn't retreat, because it is securely sealed and no one turns it back. Come therefore, and let us enjoy the good things that exist. Let us use the creation earnestly as in our youth. Let's fill ourselves with costly wine and perfumes, and let no spring flower pass us by. Let's crown ourselves with rosebuds before they wither. Let none of us go without his share in our proud revelry. Let's leave tokens of mirth everywhere, because this is our portion and this is our lot. Let's oppress the righteous poor. Let's not spare the widow, nor regard the gray hair of the old man. But let our strength be a law of righteousness, for that which is weak is proven useless. But let's lie in wait for the righteous man, because he annoys us, is contrary to our works, reproaches us with sins against the law, and charges us with sins against our training. He professes to have knowledge of our Creator, and calls himself a child of the Lord. He became to us a reproof of our thoughts. He is grievous to us even to look at, because his life is unlike other men's, and his paths are strange. We were regarded by him as something worthless, and he abstains from our ways as from uncleanness. He calls the latter end of the righteous happy. He boasts that Yahweh is his father. Let's see if his words are true. Let's test what will happen at the end of his life. For if the righteous man is Yahweh's son, he will uphold him, and he will deliver him out of the hand of his adversaries. Let's test him with insult and torture, that we may find out how gentle he is and test his patience. Let's condemn him to a shameful death, for he will be protected according to his words." Thus they reasoned, and they were led astray, for their wickedness blinded them, and they didn't know the mysteries of Yahweh, neither did they hope for wages of holiness, nor did they discern there is a prize for blameless souls. Because Yahweh created man for incorruption, and made him in image of his own everlastingness. But death entered into the world by the envy of the devil, and those who belong to him experience it. But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of Yahweh, and no torment will touch them. In the eyes of the foolish they seem to have died. Their departure was considered a disaster, and their travel away from us ruin, but they are in peace. For even if in the sight of men they are punished, their hope is full of immortality. Having borne a little chastening, they will receive great good, because Yahweh tested them and found them worthy of himself. He tested them like gold in the furnace, and he accepted them as a whole burnt offering. In the time of their visitation they will shine. They will run back and forth like sparks among the stubble. They will judge nations and have dominion over peoples. The Lord will reign over them forever. Those who trust him will understand truth. The faith will live with him in love. Because grace and mercy are with his chosen ones. But the ungodly will be punished even as their reasoning deserves. Those who neglected righteousness and revolted from the Lord. For he who despises wisdom and discipline is miserable. Their hope is void and their toils unprofitable. Their works are useless. Their wives are foolish and their children are wicked. Their descendants are cursed. For the barren woman who is undefiled is happy. She has not conceived in transgression. She will have fruit when Yahweh examines souls. So is the eunuch which has done no lawless deed with his hands. For imagined wicked things against the Lord. For a precious gift will be given to him for his faithfulness, and a delightful inheritance in the Lord's sanctuary. For good labors have fruit of great renown. The root of understanding can't fail. But children of adulterers will not come to maturity. The seed of an unlawful union will vanish away. For if they live long, they will not be esteemed, and in the end their old age will be without honor. If they die young, they will have no hope, no consolation in the day of judgment. For the end of an unrighteous generation is always grievous. It is better to be childless with virtue, for immortality is in the memory of virtue, because it is recognized both before Yahweh and before men. When it is present, people imitate it. They long after it when it has departed. Throughout all time it marches, crowned in triumph, victorious in the competition for the prizes that are undefiled. But the multiplying brood of the ungodly will be of no profit, and their illegitimate offshoots won't take deep root, nor will they establish a sure hold. For even if they grow branches and flourish for a season, standing unsure, they will be shaken by the wind. They will be uprooted by the violence of winds. Their branches will be broken off before they come to maturity. Their fruit will be useless, never ripe to eat and fit for nothing. For unlawfully conceived children are witnesses of wickedness against parents when they are investigated. But a righteous man, even if he dies before his time, will be at rest. For honorable old age is not that which stands in length of time, nor is its measure given by number of years. But understanding is gray hair to men, and an unspotted life is ripe old age. Being found well-pleasing to Yahweh, someone was loved. While living among sinners, he was transported. He was caught away, lest evil should change his understanding, or guile deceive his soul. For the fascination of wickedness obscures the things which are good, and the whirl of desire perverts an innocent mind. Being made perfect quickly, he filled a long time, for his soul was pleasing to the Lord. Therefore he hurried out of the midst of wickedness, but the people saw and didn't understand, not considering this, that grace and mercy are with his chosen, and that he visits his holy ones. But a righteous man who is dead will condemn the ungodly who are living, and youth who is quickly perfected will condemn the many years of an unrighteous man's old age. For the ungodly will see a wise man's end and won't understand what the Lord planned for him and why he safely kept him. They will see and they will despise, but the Lord will laugh them to scorn. After this they will become dishonored carcass and a reproach among the dead forever, because he will dash them speechless to the ground and will shake them from the foundations. They will lie utterly waste. They will be in anguish, and their memory will perish. They will come with coward fear when their sins are counted. Their lawless deeds will convict them to their face. You want to take over at 5 here, brother?
Sure. That was a good read. Excellent job. You make it really hard for me to follow you. It's, let me get the screen share on your end as well before I do the switch. Yeah, you read really excellent, man. I'm really thankful you've helped me with my reading.
Oh, thanks.
I like to read too. It's a good book. It's got some wise words in there. There's definitely some parabolic language going on with parables and people being likened unto a tree and unto fruit and unto leaves. The things that we've been expressing for years now, basically, right? Let me just make sure everything's good. It should be good. It says here, "Then the righteous man will stand in great boldness before the face of those who afflicted him, and those who make him his laborers of no account. When they see him, they will be troubled with a terrible fear, and will be amazed at the marvel of salvation. They will speak among themselves, repenting, and for the distress of the spirit they will groan. This was he whom we used to hold in discretion, as a parable of reproach. We fools considered his life madness, and his end without honor. How is he counted among the sons of Yahweh? How is his lot among the saints? Truly we went astray from the way of truth. The light of righteousness didn't shine for us. The sun didn't rise for us. We took our fill of the paths of the lawlessness and destruction. We traveled through trackless deserts, but we didn't know the Lord's way. What did our arrogance profit us? What good have riches and boasting brought us? Those things all passed away as a shadow, like a rumor that runs by, like a ship passing through the billow water, which, when it has gone by, there is no trace to be found, no pathway of its keel in the waves. Or it is like when a bird flies through the air, no evidence of its passage shall be found. But the light wind lashed with the stroke of its pinions, and torn apart with the violent rush of the moving wings, it's passed through. Afterwards, no sign of its coming remains. Or it is like when an arrow is shot at a mark. The air it divided closes up again immediately, so that men do not know where it passed through. So we also, as soon as we are born, cease to be. And we had no sign of virtue to show, but we were utterly consumed in our wickedness. Because the hope of the ungodly man is like chaff carried by the wind, and as a foam vanishing before a tempest, and it is scattered like smoke by the wind, and passes by the remembrance of a gust who stays just a day. But the righteous live forever. Their reward is in Yahweh, and the care for them with the Most High. Therefore they will receive the crown of royal dignity and the diadem of beauty from the Lord's hand, because he will cover them with his right hand, and he will shield them with his arm. He will take his seal and complete armor, and will make the whole creation his weapons to punish his enemies. He will put on righteousness as a breastplate, and wear an impartial judgment as a helmet. He will take holiness as an invincible shield. He will sharpen stern wrath for a sword. The universe will go with him to fight against the feigned foes. Shafts of lightning will fly with true aim. They will leap to the mark from the clouds, as from a well-drawn bow. Hailstones of wrath will be hurled as from a catapult. This is what we were just discussing. So, what could be asteroids, which we've never seen yet, have any confirmation or proof of an asteroid striking the Earth or the Moon, which we've gone over many times. It does constantly say that hailstones and fire are going to fly down at the Earth, right? So it's
because remember all those things that we call craters on the Moon and on Earth? There's no asteroid in the center of the hole, right? None of them.
There's no trace of any elements that besides the dirt that they're in, right?
That's it.
I'll keep going here. The water of the sea will be angered against them. Rivers will sternly overwhelm them. A mighty wind will encounter them. It will winnow them away like a tempest. So lawlessness will make all the land desolate. Their evil doings...
Hey, brother?
Yeah.
Brother? I don't think the screen share is following on the live stream.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you in the chat for calling that out. We appreciate that.
Hear therefore, you kings, and understand. Learn, you judges of the ends of the earth. Give ear, you rulers who have dominion over many people, and make your boast in multitudes of nations. Because your dominion was given to you from the Lord, and your sovereignty from the Most High, He will search out your works, and will inquire about your plans. So, everyone who thinks that this is what I keep telling everyone, why I've purposely, specifically called out all the leaders of the world, all the kings, all the presidents, all the prime ministers, all the leaders of the tribes and of all the secret societies, because I put them completely on notice. I've done it many times. I'm doing it right now. And my words don't only ring through our YouTube channel, they permeate through this realm, right? We're all spiritually, supernaturally connected. No one can tell me that's not true. I've experienced it most of my life. So anything that you're trying to devise, if they're trying to pull off this great reset, if they're trying to kill lots of people, if the creator, if he's not going to jive with it, you guys are going to get laughed at, thrown down, humiliated, tormented. It's a bad plan. You better hope that your plans have positivity in them. That's all I have to say. Jason?
Yeah, it's clear. It's not just in the Wisdom of Solomon. It's all throughout the 66 canon and the other extra canonical books that we've shared.
Yeah, you couldn't, completely, right? So it says, because being officers of his kingdom, you didn't judge rightly, nor did you keep the law, nor did you walk according to Yahweh's counsel. He will come upon you awfully and swiftly, because a stern judgment comes on those who are in high places. For the man of low estate may be pardoned in mercy, but mighty men will be mightily tested. For the sovereign Lord of all will not be impressed with anyone. Neither will he show difference to greatness, because it is he who made both small and great, and cares about them all. So again, if anyone's read the New Testament, you're going to hear a lot of similarity to the way that Paul wrote and spoke. Paul was constantly referencing this book, right? This is some of the greatest Holy Spirit inspired scripture that we have here. It's fitting that we've almost saved this till we're out of books to read, right? There's still more. It never ends, but what a great line. It's so poetic. I just have to let everybody know I've always been a person who writes poems, right? I've had a interesting knack since I was old enough to hold a pen and paper. I've been able to write poetry. So if anyone else is listening to this out there, you got to be hearing that it's poetry, right?
Well, even when I started out reading, and it was the YOLOs. It was the people that were like, you only live once, and we die, we turn to dust, we should do all this wickedness, because what difference does it make? Even that part of it was written super poetic. So this really is quality prose that we're going through.
Yeah, so apparently everything sounds good. I guess I'll keep going. Where was I? For the sovereign Lord, I read that. Because it is he who made both small and great. I read that. But the scrutiny that comes upon the powerful is strict. Therefore, my words are to you, O princes, that you may learn wisdom and not fall away. For those who have kept the things that are holy in holiness will be made holy. Those who have been taught them will find what to say in defense. That's a key point here. So when people persecute you, when people try to cleverly deceive you, if you're studied up with the wisdom, you have a righteous heart, you're consciously not telling lies, you're, doing the best that you can to help other people, the Holy Spirit is always going to be there to defend you.
And you'll find yourself in incredible positions where you get into the defense, and all of a sudden you start saying a whole bunch of stuff that, you'll come back in hindsight and look at the conversation, retrospectively, and you'd be like, how did I even say that? Like, where did it come from?
Totally. I think we got to mute when we're not. Okay, ready? And it says, therefore, set your desire on my words. Long for them, and you princes will be instructed. So here's a huge thing. I know everybody that's listening has probably longed for another person before in your heart. This is what Yahweh, the Father, the Creator, the Magnet, whatever you want to call it. We use the correct original name, which is Yahweh and Yahawashi, ancient Paleo-Hebrew. Long for him. Long for Yahawashi, the Son that he sent. Long for them in your heart. If you don't, I would say practice it. And it says, therefore, wisdom is radiant and does not fade away, and is easily seen by those who love her, and found by those who seek her. So again, it's a guarantee. If you love wisdom and you search for her, you will find her. She will come to you. She anticipates those who desire her, making herself known. He who rises up early to seek her won't have difficulty, for he will find her sitting at his gates. For to think upon her is perfection of understanding, and he who watches for her will quickly be free from care, because she herself goes around seeking those who are worthy of her. And in their paths she appears to them graciously, and in every purpose she meets them. For her true beginning is desire for instruction, and in desire for instruction is love.
That's some beautiful stuff right there.
That's
like bring tears to your eyes type stuff, right?
Well, honestly, that was like eating those words was like so. I don't have a word for it. I'm wholly incapable of describing what it felt like. And I'll continue a little bit more. And love is observance of her laws. To give heed to her laws confirms immortality. Immortality brings closeness to Yahweh. Again, what's this talking about immortality for? A lot of Christians don't believe that we're immortal, right? So then desire for wisdom promotes to the kingdom. If therefore you delight in the thrones and scepters and princes of peoples, honor wisdom that you may reign forever. But what wisdom is and how she came into being, I will declare. I won't hide mysteries from you, but I will explore from her first beginning, bring the knowledge of her into clear light, and I will not pass by the truth. Indeed, I won't travel with a consuming envy, because envy will have no fellowship with wisdom. But a multitude of wise men is salvation to the world, and an understanding king is stability for his people. Therefore, be instructed by my words, and you will profit. I myself am also mortal, like everyone else, and am a descendant of one formed first and born of the earth. I molded into flesh in the time of 10 months in my mother's womb. I only made it 7. Being compacted in blood from the seed of man and pleasure of marriage, I also, when I was born, drew in the common air, and fell upon the kindred of the earth, uttering, like all, for my first voice, the same cry. I was nursed with care in swaddling clothes. For no king had a different beginning, but all men have one entrance into life, and a common departure. For this cause I prayed, and understanding was given unto me. And I asked, and a spirit of wisdom came to me, and I preferred her before scepters and thrones. I considered riches nothing in comparison to her. Neither did I liken to her any priceless gem, because all gold in her presence is a little sand, and silver will be considered as clay before her. I loved her more than the health and beauty, and I chose to have her rather than light, because her bright shining is never laid to sleep. All good things came to me with her, and innumerable riches are in her hands, and I rejoiced over them all because wisdom leads them. Although I didn't know that she was their mother, as I learned without guile, I impart without grudging. I don't hide her riches, for she is a treasure for men that doesn't fail, and those who obtain friendship with Yahweh, commanded by the gifts which they present through discipline. But may Yahweh grant that I may speak his judgment, and to conceive thoughts worthy of what has been given to me, because he is one who guides even wisdom, and who corrects the wise. For both we and our words are in his hand, with all understanding and skill in various crafts. Do you want to take back over, brother?
Sure, so that is chapter 7, verse 17.
That's correct.
Let me just get that queued up.
What a scripture. Oh.
Yeah.
Love this book.
Uh-oh.
What's wrong?
Where is it? I'm trying to find... There. Take the screen share. Great reading, brother.
I had a couple slip-ups.
Beautiful scriptures.
Give me 1 second here. I got to reset it. Yeah, it was really nice. Like I said, my breath is wholly incapable of explaining how it makes me feel, and you're good.
Yeah, it gave me waves of joy. So it says, "For he himself gave me an unerring knowledge of the things that are, to know the structure of the universe and the operation of the elements, the beginning, end, and middle of times, the alternations of the solstices and changes of seasons, the circuits of years and the positions of stars, the nature of living creatures and the raging of wild beasts, the violence of winds and the thoughts of men, the diversities of plants and the virtues of roots. All things that are either secret or manifest I learned, for wisdom that is the architect of all things taught me. For there is in her a spirit that is quick to understand, holy, unique, manifold, subtle, freely moving, clear in utterance, unpolluted, distinct, invulnerable, loving what is good, keen, unhindered, beneficent, loving toward men, steadfast, sure, free from care, all-powerful, all-surveying, and penetrating through all spirits that are quick to understand, pure, most subtle."
Okay, hold on. I just have to say I'm really thankful that the Spirit had told me to stop reading. There was some nice words in there. I'm going to take those down for my vernacular so that when I want to look impressive, I can say, "Don't make me feel so invulnerable," right? I don't want to be hindered. So yeah, that was excellent. I really like the way that... So he's likening, Solomon's writing is likening the Holy Spirit, the Spirit, her, it's a feminine aspect that he's calling on, to the similar qualities of the Father, of Yahweh, right? Like a counterpart.
This right here is the most descriptive set of words, and so clean and succinct. It's unbelievable. The description that you get of wisdom, it's super empowering. I'm going to read this again. This description of wisdom, if you really get it and understand it, you're going to be able to spot it everywhere. Right? It'll give you the eyes to see it. And it says, "For there is in her a spirit that is quick to understand, holy, unique, manifold, subtle, freely moving." It just flows around, clear in utterance. It's just succinct, unpolluted, distinct, invulnerable. I mean, it can't lose. It's impossible. Invulnerable. It's like being immortal. It's invulnerable. There's no failing. Loving what is good, keen, unhindered. That's another free-flowing
So I want to
description.
feel invulnerable. Sorry. I misspoke earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to be invulnerable. It's like being like the two witnesses where they can't be killed, they're invincible.
Like Jason Travels. What was I going to say? Jason Travels. I can't get it out. I lost it. You are the honorable, and I shall be the invulnerable.
Beneficent. So it looks out for the benefit of others. Loving toward man, steadfast. It's just like stable, unmoving, unwavering, sure, free from care, all powerful, all surveying, and penetrating through all spirits that are quick to understand, pure, most subtle. For wisdom is more mobile than any motion. More mobile than any motion. Yes, she pervades and penetrates all things by reason of her purity. For she is a breath of the power of Yahweh, and a pure emanation of the glory of the Almighty. Therefore nothing defiled can find entrance into her, for she is a reflection of everlasting light.
Whoa! I'm sorry. I'm not going to ring the bell because this is a special book. But to be a reflection of everlasting light, that is so beautifully put. I really like that.
That's good stuff. An unspotted mirror of the working of Yahweh, and an image of his goodness. Although she is one, she has power to do all things. Remaining in herself, she renews all things. From generation to generation, passing into holy souls, she makes friends of Yahweh and prophets. For Yahweh loves nothing as much as one who dwells with wisdom. For she is fairer than the sun, and above all the constellations of the stars. She is better than light. For daylight yields to night, but evil does not prevail against wisdom. For she reaches from one end to the other with full strength, and orders all things well. I loved her and sought her from my youth. I sought to take her for my bride. I became enamored by her beauty. She glorifies her noble birth by living with Yahweh. The sovereign Lord of all loves her, for she is initiated into the knowledge of Yahweh, and she chooses his works. But if riches are a desired possession in life, what is richer than wisdom, which makes all things? And if understanding is effective, who more than wisdom is an architect of the things that exist? If a man loves righteousness, the fruits of wisdom's labor are virtues. For she teaches soberness, understanding, righteousness, and courage. There is nothing in life more profitable for people than these. And if anyone longs for wide experience, she knows the things of old and infers the things to come. She understands subtleties of speeches and interprets of dark sayings. She foresees signs and wonders and the issues of seasons and times. Therefore, I determined to take her to live with me, knowing that she is one who will give me good counsel, and encourage me in cares and grief. Because of her, I will have glory among multitudes, and honor in the sight of elders, though I am young. I will be found keen when I give judgment. I will be admired in the presence of rulers. When I am silent, they will wait for me. And when I open my lips, they will heed what I say. If I continue speaking, they will put their hands on their mouths. Because of her, I will have immortality and leave behind an eternal memory to those who come after me. I will govern peoples. Nations will be subjected to me. Dreaded monarchs will fear me when they hear of me. Among the people, I will show myself to be good and courageous in war. When I come into my house, I will find rest with her. For conversation with her has no bitterness, and living with her has no pain, but gladness and joy. When I considered these things in myself, and thought in my heart how immortality is in kinship to wisdom, and in her friendship is good delight, and in the labors of her hands is wealth that doesn't fail, and understanding is in her companionship, and great renown in having fellowship with her words. I went about seeking how to take her to myself. Now I was a clever child, and received a good soul, or rather, being good, I came into an undefiled body. But perceiving that, now this is interesting. Just pay attention to verse 19 and 20 here. He says, now I was a clever child and received a good soul, or rather, being good, I came into an undefiled body. Now this is a transmigrational reincarnation scripture. In my opinion, I see something there about that. I'd like to point that out.
And sometimes it's the spirit that's expressively speaking through him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The spirit comes into the body only undefiled. But I do completely agree with you with the whole reincarnation thing. Everybody knows that. They should.
Yeah. But perceiving that, I could not otherwise possess wisdom unless Yahweh gave her to me. And yes, and to know and understand by whom the grace is given. I pleaded with the Lord and implored him, and with my whole heart said, O Yahweh of my ancestors and Lord of mercy, who made all things by your word, and by your wisdom you formed man, that he should have dominion over the creatures that were made by you, and rule the world in holiness and righteousness, and execute judgment in uprightness of soul. Give me wisdom, her who sits by you on your thrones. Don't reject me from among your servants, because I am your servant and the son of your handmaid. A weak and short-lived man, with little power to understand judgment and laws. For even if a man is perfect among the souls of men, if the wisdom that comes from you is not with him, he will count for nothing. You choose me to be king of your people and a judge of your sons and daughters. You gave me a command to build a sanctuary on your holy mountain and an altar in the city where you live, a copy of the holy tent which you prepared from the beginning. Wisdom is with you and knows your works, and was present when you were making the world, and understands what is pleasing in your eyes, and what is right according to your commandments. Send her from the holy heavens, and ask her to come from the throne of your glory, that bring present with me she may work, and I may learn what pleases you well. For she knows all things, and understands, and she will guide me prudently in my actions. She will guard me in her glory. So my works will be acceptable. I will judge your people righteously, and I will be worthy of my Father's throne. For what man will know the counsel of Yahweh, or who will conceive what the Lord wills? For the thoughts of mortals are unstable, and our plans are prone to fail. For a corruptible body weighs down the soul. The earthly tent burdens a mind that is full of cares. We can hardly guess the things that are on earth, and we find the things that are close at hand with labor. But who has traced out the things that are in the heavens? Who gained knowledge of your counsel unless you gave wisdom and sent your Holy Spirit from on high? It was thus that the ways of those who are on earth were corrected, and men were taught the things that are pleasing to you. They were saved through wisdom. Wisdom guarded to the end of the first-formed Father of the world, who was created alone and delivered him out of his own transgression, and gave him strength to rule over all things. But when an unrighteous man fell away from her in his anger, he perished himself in the rage with which he killed his brother. When for his cause the earth was drowning with a flood, wisdom again saved it, guiding the righteous man's course by a paltry piece of wood. Moreover, when nations consenting together in wickedness had been confounded, wisdom knew the righteous man and preserved him blameless to Yahweh, and kept him strong when his heart yearned toward his child. While the ungodly were perishing, wisdom delivered a righteous man, when he fled from the fire that descended out of heaven on the 5 cities, to whose wickedness a smoking waste still witnesses, and plants bearing fair fruit that doesn't ripen, a disbelieving soul has a memorial, a standing pillar of salt. For having passed wisdom by, not only were they disabled from recognizing the things which are good, but they also left behind them for their life a monument of their folly, to the end that where they stumbled they might fail even to be unseen. But wisdom delivered those who waited on her out of troubles. When a righteous man was a fugitive from a brother's wrath, wisdom guided him in a straight path. She showed him Yahweh's kingdom and gave him knowledge of holy things. She prospered him in his toils and multiplied the fruits of his labor. When in their covetous men dealt harshly with him, she stood by him and made him rich. She guarded him from enemies, and she kept him safe from those who lay in wait. Over his severe conflict she watched as judge. That he might know the godliness is more powerful than everyone. When a righteous man was sold, wisdom didn't forsake him, but she delivered him from sin. She went down with him into a dungeon, and in bonds she didn't depart from him, until she brought him the scepter of a kingdom, and authority over those that dealt like a tyrant with him. She also showed those who had mockingly accused him to be false, and gave him eternal glory. Wisdom delivered a holy people and a blameless seed from a nation of oppressors. She entered into the soul of a servant of the Lord, and withstood terrible kings and wonders and signs. She rendered to holy men a reward of their toils. She guided them along a marvelous way, and became to them a covering in the daytime, and a starry flame through the night. She brought them over the Red Sea, and led them through much water. But she drowned their enemies, and she cast them up from the bottom of the deep. Therefore the righteous plundered the ungodly, and they sang praise to your holy name, O Yahweh, and extolled with one accord your hand that fought for them, because wisdom opened the mouth of the mute, and made the tongues of babes to speak clearly. You want to take over at 11?
Yeah, sure. I'm following along as you go, brother. So
I was watching you on the live stream. I wasn't following on the PDF.
Do you want me to screen share for you as well, or no?
That's all right. I'll watch it on.
Okay. I should be screen sharing. Wisdom prospered their works in the hand of the holy prophet. They traveled through a desert without inhabitant, and they pitched their tents in trackless regions. They withstood enemies and repelled foes. They thirsted, and they called upon you, and water was given to them out of the flinty rock, and healing of their thirst out of the hard stone. For by what things their foes were punished, by these they were in their need were benefited. When enemies were troubled with clotted blood, instead of a river's ever-flowing fountain, to rebuke the decree for the slaying of babies, you gave them abundant water beyond all hope, having shown them by the thirst which they had suffered how you punished the adversaries. For when they were tired, although chastened in mercy, they learned how the ungodly were tormented, being judged with wrath. For you tested these as a father admonishing them, but you searched out those as a stern king condemning them. Yes, and whether they were far off or near, they were equally distressed, for a double grief seized them, and a groaning at the memory of things past. For when they heard that through their own punishments the others benefited, they recognized the Lord. It's pretty incredible. For him who long before was thrown out and exposed, they stopped mocking. In the end of what happened, they marveled, having thirsted in another manner than the righteous, but in return for the senseless imaginings of their unrighteousness, wherein they were led astray to worship irrational reptiles and wretched vermin. You sent upon them the multitude of irrational creatures to punish them, that they might learn that by what things a man sins, by these he is punished. Okay, that right there, heavy Yahawashi message, right? They needed to learn what things a man sins, by these he is punished. So we will obviously deal with everything we do wrong. For your own powerful hand that created the world out of a formless matter didn't lack means to send upon them a multitude of bears and fierce lions. So again, what we live in, the simulation we call it, came from nothing, right? So, or newly created and unknown wild beasts full of rage, either breathing out a blast of fiery breath, or belching out smoke, or flashing dreadful sparks from their eyes, which had power not only to consume them by their violence, but to destroy them, even by the terror of their sight. Yes, and without these they might have fallen by a single breath, being pursued by justice and scattered abroad by the breath of your power. But you arranged all things by measure, number, and weight. For to be greatly strong is yours at all times. Who could withstand the might of your arm? Because the whole world before you is as a grain in a balance, and as a drop of dew that comes down upon the earth in the morning. But you have mercy on all men, because you have the power to do all things. And you overtook the sins of men, to the end that they may repent. For you love all things that are, and abhor none of the things which you made. For you never would have formed anything if you had hated it. How would anything have endured unless you had willed it? It's a great question. Or that which is not called by you, how would it have been preserved? But you spare all things because they are yours, O sovereign Lord, you who love the living. For your incorruptible spirit is in all things. Therefore you convict little by little those who fall from the right way, and putting them in your remembrance, by the things wherein they sin, you admonish them, that escaping from their wickedness, they may believe in you, O Lord. For truly the old inhabitants of our holy land, hating them because they practiced detestable works of enchantments and unholy rites, merciless slaughters of children, and sacrificial banquets of men's flesh and of blood, allies as an impious fellowship and murderous of their own helpless babes. It was your counsel to destroy by the hands of our fathers, that the land which in your sight is most precious of all might receive a worthy colony of Yahweh's servants. Nevertheless, you even spared these as men, and you sent hornets as forerunners of your army, to cause them to perish little by little. Not that you were unable to subdue the ungodly under the hand of the righteousness in battle, or by terrible beasts, or by a stern word to make away with them at once. But judging them little by little, you gave them a chance to repent, not being arrogant that the nature by birth was evil, their wickedness is inborn, and that their manner of thought would never be changed. For they were a cursed seed from the beginning. It wasn't through fear of any that you left them unpunished for their sins. So it's interesting. He knew there was a group of characters that were going to come into the simulation, into the game, and he knew that they weren't righteous. He knew that they were, I guess, not on the good side of the scale. And the love story that is shown throughout the scriptures of the Creator and these evil ones, even Yahawashi himself, like he said he came for the lost sheep, the one that got away. That would be the one that wasn't righteous. The righteous son in the parable of he stayed home, right? There was never any worry. It was the wicked son that they really rejoiced over. It's just something that I see constantly promoted throughout the scriptures. It doesn't get really noticed by anybody, right? I don't know if you've noticed that, Jason. Nobody really talks about the wicked and how the Creator absolutely loved them and did everything that he can and still does, really, to this day. That's why we're still here.
No, you hear all these people whining about Esau, how he got swindled. Esau got swindled, right?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about how when Cain killed Abel, how the father pleaded with Cain and actually tried to he just wanted Cain to admit that what he did was wrong, and like Cain wouldn't fess up at all. He was bad.
He gave him so many chances.
Yeah.
And it says, "For who will say, 'What have you done?' Or who will withstand your judgment? Who will accuse you for the perishing of nations which you caused? Or who will come and stand before you as an avenger for unrighteous men? For there isn't any Yahweh beside you that cares for all, that you might show that you didn't judge unrighteously. No king or prince will be able to confront you about those whom you have punished. But being righteous, you rule all things righteously, deeming it in a thing alien from your power to condemn one who doesn't deserve to be punished. For your strength is the source of righteousness, and your sovereignty over all makes you the forebearer of all. For when men didn't believe that you are perfect in power, you showed your strength, and in dealing with those who think this, you confuse their boldness. But you, being sovereign in strength, judge in gentleness, and with great forbearance you govern us. For the power is yours whenever you desire it. But you taught your people by such works as these, how the righteous must be kind. You made your sons to have good hope, because you gave repentance when men have sinned. For if on those who were enemies of your servants and deserving death, you took vengeance with so great deliberation and indulgence, giving them times and opportunities when they might escape from their wickedness, with how great care you judged your sons, to whose fathers you gave oaths and covenants and good promises. Therefore, while you chasten us, you scourge our enemies 10,000 times more, to the intent that we may ponder your goodness when we judge, and when we are judged may look for mercy. Therefore also the unrighteous that lived a life of folly, you tormented through their own abominations. For truly they went astray very far in the ways of error, taking as gods those animals which even among their enemies were held in dishonor, deceived like foolish babes. Therefore, as to unreasoning children, you sent your judgment to mock them. But those who would not be admonished by mild correction will experience the deserved judgment of Yahweh. For though the sufferings they were indignant of, being punished in these creatures which they supposed to be gods, they saw and recognized as the true Yahweh, him whom they previously refused to know. Therefore, also the result of extreme condemnation came upon them. For truly all men who had no perception of Yahweh were foolish by nature. I'll read a little bit more. And didn't gain power to know him who exists from the good things that are seen. They didn't recognize the architect from his works, but they thought that their ether fire or wind or swift air or circling stars or raging water or luminaries of heaven were gods that rule the world. So again, this goes back to a lot of astrology. This goes back to a lot of paganism, to a lot of, so many different people I could name off. I'm not going to. But
yeah, they looked at the creation in the heavens, the sun, moon, and stars, and worshiped them like they were the creator.
Yeah.
They were creation.
And it says, and it was through their delight and their beauty that they took them to be gods. Let them know how much better their sovereign Lord is than these. For the first author of beauty created them. But if it was through astonishment at their power and influence, then let them understand from them how much more powerful he who formed them is. So this is sort of a plea. Solomon's pleading that Yahweh show them that, this is how much more I am. For from the greatness of the beauty of the created things, mankind forms the corresponding perception of their Maker. But yet for these men there is but small blame, for they too perhaps go astray, while they are seeking Yahweh and desiring to find him, for they diligently search while living among his works, and they trust their sight that the things that they look are beautiful. But again, even they are not to be excused. For if they had had power to know so much, they should be able to explore the world, how it is that they didn't find the sovereign Lord sooner. But they were miserable, and their hopes were in the dead things. Who called them gods, which are works of man's hands, gold and silver, skillfully made, and likeness of animals, or a useless stone, the work of an ancient hand. Yet, yes, and some woodcutters might saw down a tree easily moved, skillfully strip away its bark, and fashion it in an attractive form, make a useful vessel to serve his life's needs. Burning the scraps from his handiwork to cook his food, he eats his fill, taking a discarded scrap which served no purpose, a crooked piece of wood full of knots. He carves it with the diligence of his idleness, and shapes it by the skill of his idleness. He shapes it in the image of man, or makes it look like some worthless animal, smearing it with some red, painting it red, and smearing it over every stain of it. Having made a worthy chamber for it, he sets it in the wall, securing it with iron. He plans for it that it may not fall, knowing that it is unable to help itself, for truly it is an image and needs help. When he makes his prayer concerning goods and his marriage and children, he is not ashamed to speak to that which has no life. Yes, for health he calls upon that which is weak. For life he implores that which is dead. For aid he supplicates that which has no experience. For a good journey he asks that which can't so much move a step. And for profit in business and good success of his hands, he asks ability from that which has hands with no ability. Again, it's just mocking. You know who this brings to mind is Abraham's dad, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. You can take over at 14. I was starting to stumble there, but it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious, mocking these things that people worship that have zero power, just make believe nonsense. And do a screen share. Great read, brother.
A little bit tougher, but
and again, one preparing to sail and about to journey over raging waves calls upon a piece of wood more fragile than the vessel that carries him. For the hunger for profit planned it, and wisdom has the craftsman who built it. Your providence, O Father, guides it along, because even in the sea you gave a way, and in the waves a sure path, showing that you can save out of every danger, that even a man without skill may put to sea. It is your will that the works of your wisdom should not be ineffective. Therefore, men also entrust their lives to a little piece of wood, and passing through the surge on a raft come safely to land. From the old time also, when proud giants were perishing, the hope of the world taking refuge on a raft, your hand guided the seed of generations of the race of men. For blessed is wood through which comes righteousness, but the idol made with hands is accursed itself, and he that made it. Because his was the working, and the corruptible thing was called a god. For both the ungodly and his ungodliness are alike hateful to Yahweh. For truly the deed will be punished together with him who committed it. Therefore also there will be a visitation among the idols of the nation, because, though formed of things which Yahweh created, they were made an abomination, stumbling blocks to the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the foolish. For the devising of idols was the beginning of fornication, and the invention of them the corruption of life. For they didn't exist from the beginning, and they won't exist forever. For by the boastfulness of men they entered into the world, and therefore a speedy end was planned for them. For a father, worn with untimely grief, making an image of the child quickly taken away, now honored him as a god which was then a dead human being, and delivered to those that were under him mysteries and solemn rites. Afterward, the ungodly custom, in process of time grown strong, was kept as the law, and the engraved images received worship by the commandments of princes. And when men could not honor them in presence because they lived far off, imagining the likeness from afar off, they made a visible image of the king whom they honored, that by their zeal they might flatter the absent as if present. But worship was raised to a yet higher pitch, even by those who didn't know him, urged forward by the ambition of the architect, for he, wishing perhaps to please his ruler, used his art to force the likeness toward a greater beauty. So the multitude, allured by reason of the grace of his handiwork, now consider an object of devotion him that a little before was honored as a man. And this became an ambush, because men, in bondage either to calamity or tyranny, invested stones and stocks with a name that shouldn't be shared. Afterward, it was not enough for them to go astray concerning the knowledge of Yahweh, but also, while they live in a great war of ignorance, they call a multitude of evils peace, for either slaughtering children in solemn rites, or celebrating secret mysteries, or holding... Go ahead.
Well, I just have to say that, a lot of people in the Hebrew Israelite movement, they'll always say, shalom, shalom, peace, peace, right? There's no peace right now. We've got tyrant rulers. They have secret societies. He's basically calling out what's happening now. I guess it's always been happening. I just wanted to bring the resemblance to forbearance.
Yeah, we just covered it. Like the slaughtering of children in solemn rites. That's like high time is Halloween. Like we're in that season right now. We just covered
today
it.
Too, right? The Samhain. There's the 3 days of Samhain. It ends tonight or whatever.
Yeah, and we're calling out it's all the secret societies, the Freemasons, Jesuits, Knights Templars, Rosicrucians. There's thousands of all these super satanic secret societies. It seems to all be run through the Vatican. So Vatican over there, that's Mystery Babylon. It runs all these secret societies. For either... No longer do they guard either life or purity of marriage, but one brings upon another either death by treachery or anguish by adultery. In all things confusedly are filled with blood and murder, theft, deceit, corruption, faithlessness, tumult, perjury, confusion about what is good, forgetfulness of favors, ingratitude for benefits, defiling of souls, confusion of sex. How did confusion of sex? They even have the whole transgender LGBT.
Yeah, they got it.
Disorder in marriage, adultery and wantonness, for the worship of idols that may not be named, is a beginning and cause and end of every evil.
Why do they have that satanic 6-pointed star at the side of that line? It says it shall not be named, but it has the 6-pointed star there. Hello?
Yeah, that's we've been covering how satanic that symbol is. That came out in the Halloween video we did last night. For their worshippers either make merry to madness, or prophesy lies, or live unrighteously, or lightly commit perjury. For putting their trust in lifeless idols, when they have sworn a wicked oath, they expect not to suffer harm. But on both counts the just doom will pursue them, because they have evil thoughts of Yahweh by giving heed to idols, and sworn unrighteously in deceit through contempt for holiness. For it is not the power of things by which men swear, but it is the just penalty for those whose sin that always visits the transgression of the unrighteous. But you, our Elohim, are gracious and true, patient, in mercy, ordering all things. For even if we sin, we are yours, knowing your dominion, but we will not sin, knowing that we have been accounted yours. For to be acquainted with you is perfect righteousness, and to know your dominion is the root of immortality. For we weren't led astray by any evil plan of men's, nor yet by painters' fruitless labor, a form stained with varied colors, the sight of which leads fools into lust. Their desire is for the breathless form of a dead image, Lovers of evil things and worthy of such hopes are those who make, desire, and worship them. For a potter, kneading soft earth, laboriously molds each article for our service. He fashions out of them the same clay both the vessels that minister to clean uses and those of a contrary sort, all in like manner. What shall be the use of each article of either sort? The potter is the judge. Also, laboring to an evil end, he molds a vain god out of the same clay. He, who having but a little before been made of earth, after a short space goes his way to the earth out of which he was taken, when he is required to render back the soul which was lent him. However, he has anxious care, not because his powers must fail, nor because his span of life is short, but he compares himself with goldsmiths and silversmiths, and he imitates molders and brass, and considers it great that the mold counterfeit gods. His heart is ashes. His hope is of useless value than earth. His life is of less honor than clay, because he is ignorant of who molded him, and of him that inspired into him an active soul, and breathed into him a vital spirit. But he accounted our life to be a game, and our lifetime a festival for profit.
Well,
For he said, go ahead.
all right. But he accounted our life to be a what?
A game.
What is it that we say that this is?
Simulation, spiritual realm.
/ game with real
Yeah.
consequences.
With real consequences.
Just wanted to say.
One must get gain, however, one can, even if it is by evil. For this man, beyond all others, knows that he sins out of earthly matter, making brittle vessels and engraved images. But most foolish and most miserable than a baby are the enemies of your people who oppress them, because they even considered all the idols of the nations to be gods, which have neither the use of eyes for seeing, nor nostrils for drawing breath, nor ears to hear, nor fingers for handling, and their feet are helpless for walking. For a man made them, and one whose own spirit is molded them. For no one has power as a man to mold a god like himself. But being mortal, he makes a dead thing by the work of a lawless hands. For he is better than the objects of his worship, since he indeed had life, but they never did.
Yeah, I love the way that the spirit mocks. Like, it just straight up calls out, like, that thing ain't got no legs. It's not breathing. What are you giving that? Like,
You gotta secure it on the shelf so it doesn't fall off. What? It
can't even hold itself up?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yes, and they worship the creatures that are most hateful. For being compared as to lack of sense, these are worse than all others. Neither, as seen beside other creatures, are they beautiful, so that one should desire them. But they have escaped both the praise of Yahweh and his blessing. Maybe I'll do one more. For this cause they were deservedly punished through creatures like those which they worship, and tormented through a multitude of vermin. Instead of this punishment, you, giving benefits to your people, prepared quails for food, a delicacy to satisfy the desire of their appetite, to the end that your enemies, desiring food, might for the hideousness of the creatures sent among them, loathe even for the necessary appetite. But these, your people, having for a short time suffered lack, might even partake of delicacies. For it was necessary that inescapable lack should come upon those oppressors, but that to these it should only be showed how their enemies were tormented. For even when terrible raging of wild beasts came upon your people, and they were perishing by the bites of crooked serpents, your wrath didn't continue to the utmost, but for admonition were they troubled for a short time, having a token of salvation to put them in remembrance of the commandment of your law. For he who turned toward it was not saved because of that which was seen, but because of you, the Savior of all. Yes, in this you persuaded our enemies that you are he who delivers out of every evil. For the bites of locusts and flies truly killed them. No healing for their life was found, because they were worthy to be punished by such things. But your children weren't overcome by the very fangs of venomous dragons, for your mercy passed by where they were and healed them. For they were bitten to put them in remembrance of your oracles, and were quickly saved, lest falling into deep forgetfulness, they should become unable to respond to your kindness. For truly it was neither herb nor poultice that cured them, but your word, O Lord, which heals all people. For you have authority over life and death, and you lead down to the gates of Hades and lead up again. But though a man kills by his wickedness, he can't retrieve the spirit that has departed or release the imprisoned soul. But it is not possible to escape your hand. For ungodly men, refusing to know you, were scourged in the strength of your arm, pursued with strange rains and hails and relentless storms, and utterly consumed with fire. For what was most marvelous, in the water which quenched all things, the fire burned hotter, for the world fights for the righteous. For at one time the flame was restrained, that it might not burn up the creatures sent against the ungodly. But these themselves, as they looked, might see that they were chased by the judgment of Yahweh. At another time, even in the midst of water, it burns more intensely than fire, that it may destroy the produce of an unrighteous land. Instead of these things, you gave your people angels food to eat, and you provided ready-to-eat bread for them from heaven without toil.
Manna.
Yeah,
It rained bread, right? Like honey-flavored pieces of bread.
ready to eat. Like you didn't have to do nothing, just pick it up and eat it.
Gather it and eat it.
Having the virtue of every pleasant flavor and agreeable to every taste. So everybody liked it.
I'm sorry, it's so beautiful. Come on, who has some books like this? If you can put in the comment section below, if you can come even remotely close to any of the things that are written in this one book, I'd love to read them.
Mm-hmm. For your nature showed your sweetness toward your children, while that bread, serving the desire of the eater, changed itself according to every man's choice. But snow and ice endured fire and didn't melt, that people might know that fire was destroying the fruits of the enemies, burning in the hail and flashing in the rains, and that this fire, again, in order that righteous people may be nourished, has even forgotten its own power. For the creation, ministering to you, its maker, strains its force against the unrighteous for punishment, and in kindness slackens it on behalf of those who trust in you. Therefore, at that time also, converting itself into all forms, it ministered to your all-nourishing bounty, according to the desire of those who had need, that your children, whom you loved, your, O Lord, might learn that it is not the growth of crops that nourishes a man, but that your word preserves those who trust you. For that which was not destroyed by fire melted away when it was simply warmed by a faint sunbeam, that it might be known that we must rise before the sun to give you thanks. We must pray to you at the dawn of the light. For the hope of the unthankful will melt as the winter's hoarfrost, and will flow away as water that has no use.
Do you think that's important? So everyone that is a long-term follower of our channels, you should know every day when you wake up, the first thing you should do is thank the Creator, the one who gave you breath, that gave you the day. And if you want to have a better day than you did today, I suggest you try doing that. And I like to do what Yahawashai, so the Father, the Creator of all. Some people, again, use different names. We go by the Paleo-Hebrew, Yahweh and Yahawashai. Sent his son, Yahawashai, and when they asked him, hey, you seem to be so connected, we've never seen these miracles before. He was raising the dead, healing the blind, they were having sight. He turned to them and said, Our Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Right? He recited that prayer. It's called the Father's Prayer. That should be a clue. Like when they said, hey, how do we pray to the Father? He's like, oh, you want to pray to my dad? He's like, Papa? He's like, read this prayer. And I really want everyone to understand that. It's very important. I'll take the screen share, I guess. What are your words on that, Jay?
Yeah, I know you keep on pointing that out in all the scriptures. It is all over the place that we're supposed to get up in the morning and do just like it said right here. We must rise before the sun and give thanks.
Well, when you wake up, if you get up earlier than the sun, that's great. I'm not saying that everyone has to do it like that. That's the way that... Go ahead.
It was children in the morning type advice. We're supposed to be sober, get up diligent. This is definitely something to work for.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be done all the time, but when you wake up, the key is when you wake up, right? So, and it says, "For your judgments are great and hard to interpret. Therefore, undisciplined souls went astray. For when lawless men had supposed that they held a holy nation in their power, they, prisoners of darkness and bound in the fetters of a long night, kept close beneath their roofs, they exiled from the eternal providence. For while they thought that they were unseen in their secret sins, they were divided from one another by a dark curtain of forgetfulness, stricken with terrible awe, and very troubled by apparitions. For neither did the dark recesses that held them guard them from fears, but terrifying sounds rang around them, and dismal phantoms appeared in unsmiling faces, and no power of fire prevailed to give light. Neither were the brightest flames of the stars strong enough to illuminate that gloomy night, but only the glimmering of self-kindled fire appeared to them. Full of fear, in terror, they considered the things which they saw to be worse than that sight on which they could not gaze. The mockeries of their magic arts were powerless now, in a shameful rebuke of their boasted understanding. For those who promised to drive away terrors and disorders from the sick soul, these were sick and ludicrous fearlessness. For even if no troubling being frightened them, yet scared, with the creeping of vermin and hissing of serpents, they perished trembling in fear, refusing even to look at the air, which could not be escaped on any side. For wickedness condemned by a witness within is a coward thing, and being pressed hard by conscience always has added forecasts of the worst. For fear is nothing else but a surrender of the help which reason offers. And from within the expectation of being less prefers ignorance, and the cause of that brings the torment. But they, all through the night which was powerless indeed, and which came upon them out of the recesses of powerless Hades, sleeping the same sleep, now were haunted by monstrous apparitions, and now were paralyzed by their souls surrendering. For sudden and unexpected fear came upon them, so then whoever it might be, sinking down in his place, was kept captive, shut up in that prison which was not barred with iron. For whether he was a farmer, or a shepherd, or a laborer whose toils were in the wilderness, he was overtaken, and endured that inescapable sentence. For they were all bound with one chain of darkness, whether there was a whistling wind, or a melodious sound of birds among the spreading branches, or a measured fall of winter running violently, or a harsh crashing of the rocks hurled down, or the swift course of the animals bounding along the unseen, or the voice of the wild beasts harshly roaring, or an echo rebounding from the hollows of the mountains. All these things paralyzed them with terror. For the whole world was illuminated with clear light, and was occupied with unhindered works, while over them alone was spread a heavy light, an image of the darkness that should afterwards receive them. But to themselves they were heavier than darkness. But for your holy ones there was great light. Their enemies, hearing their voice but not seeing their form, counted it a happy thing that they too had suffered. Yet for that they did not hurt them. Though wronged by them before, they are thankful. And because they had been in variance with them, they begged for pardon. Therefore you provided a burning pillar of fire, to be a guide for your people's unknown journey, and a harmless sun for their glorious exile. For the Egyptians well deserved to be deprived of light, and imprisoned by darkness, they who had imprisoned your children, though whom the incorruptible light of the law was given to the race of men, after they had taken counsel to kill the babes of the holy ones, and when a single child had been abandoned and saved to convict them of their sin, you took away from them their multitude of children, and destroyed all of their army together in a mighty flood. Our fathers were made aware of that night beforehand, that having sure knowledge, they might be cheered by the oaths which they had trusted. Salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies was expected by your people. For as you took vengeance on the adversaries, by the same means calling us to yourself, you glorified us. For holy children of good men offered sacrifice in secret, and with one constant they agreed to the covenant of the divine law, that they would partake alike in the same good things and the same perils. The fathers had already leading the sacred songs of praise. But the discordant cry of the enemies echoed back, and a pitiful voice of lamentation for children was spread abroad. Both servant and master were punished with the same just doom, and the commoner suffering the same as the king, commoner as the king. Yes, they all together, under one form of death, had corpses without number, for the living were not sufficient even to bury them, since in a single stroke their most cherished offspring were consumed. For while they were disbelieving all the things by reason of the enchantments, upon the destruction of their firstborn, they confessed the people to be Yahweh's children. For while peaceful silence wrapped all things, and night in her own swiftness was half spent, your all-powerful word leaped from heaven, from the royal throne, a stern warrior into the midst of the doomed land, bearing a sharp sword, your authentic commandment, and standing, it filled all things with death. And while it touched the heaven, it stood upon the earth. Then immediately apparitions and dreams terribly troubled them, and unexpected fears came upon them, and each one thrown here half dead, another there, and known by this why he was dying. For the dreams disturbing them forewarned them of this, that they might not perish without knowing why they were afflicted. The experience of death also touched the righteous, and a multitude were destroyed in the wilderness, but the wrath didn't last long. For a blameless man hurried to be their champion, bringing the weapon of his own ministry prayer, and the atoning sacrifice of incense. He withstood the indignation and set at an end to the calamity, showing that he was your servant, and he overcame the anger, not by strength of body, not by force of weapons, but by his word. He subdued the avenger, by bringing remembrance oaths and covenants made with fathers. For when the dead had already fallen in heaps one upon another, he intervened and stopped the wrath, and cut off its way to the living. For the whole world was pictured on his long robe, and the glories of the fathers were upon the engraving of the 4 rows of precious stones, and your majesty was upon the diadem on his head. The destroyer yielded to those, and they feared, for it was enough only to test the wrath. But indignation without mercy came upon the ungodly to the end. For Yahweh also foreknew their future, how having changed their minds to let your people go, and having sped them eagerly on their way, they would change their minds and pursue them. For while they were yet in the midst of their mourning and lamenting at the graves of the dead, they made another foolish decision, and pursued as fugitives those whom they had begged to leave and driven out. For the doom which they had deserved was drawing them to this end, and it made them forget that the things had happened to them, that they might fill up the punishment which was yet lacking from their torments, and that your people might journey on by a marvelous road, but they themselves might find a strange death. For the whole creation, each part in its diverse kind, was made new again, complying with your commandments, that your servants might be kept unharmed. Then the cloud that overshadowed the camp was seen, and dry land rising up out of what had been water, out of the Red Sea an unhindered highway, and a grassy plain out of the violent surge. by which they passed over with all their army. These who were covered with your hand, having seen strange marvels. For like horses they roamed at large, and they skipped about like lambs, praising you, O Lord, who was their deliverer, which means Hawashai. That word right there means Hawashai. For they still remembered the things that happened in the time of their sojourning. How instead of bearing cattle, the land brought forth lice, and instead of fish, the river spewed out a multitude of frogs. But afterwards, they also saw a new kind of bird. When led on by desire, they asked for luxurious dainties. For to comfort them, quails came up from the sea. Punishment came upon the sinners, not without the signs that were given beforehand by the violence of the thunder. For they justly suffered through their own wickedness. For hatred which they practiced toward guests was grievous indeed. For while the others didn't receive the strangers when they came to them, the Egyptians made slaves of guests who were their benefactors. And not only so, but while punishment of some sort will come upon the former, since they received as enemies those who were aliens, because these first welcomed with feastings, and then afflicted with dreadful toils those who had already shared with them in the same rights. So this is what they did in Sodom and Gomorrah. If anyone came in, they would starve them, they would torment them, they would rape them, and they would watch them die. So this is a common thing in the history. I think it's almost done, Jay. Should I just finish it?
Yeah, you're real close.
And moreover, they were stricken with loss of sight, even as were those others at the righteous man's doors. When being surrounded with yawning darkness, they each looked for the passage through his own door. For as the notes of a lute vary the character of the rhythm, even so the elements, changing their order one and with another, continuing always in its sound, as may clearly be conjectured from the sight of those things that have happened. For creatures of the dry land were turned into creatures of the waters, and creatures that swim moved upon the land. Fire kept the majesty of its own power in water, and water forgot its quenching nature. On the contrary, flames didn't consume flesh of perishable creatures that walked among them, neither did they melt the crystalline grains of ambrosial food that were melted so easily. For in all things, O Lord, you magnified your people, and you glorified them, and didn't lightly regard them, standing by their side in every time and place. I can't believe that it had the word crystalline in it.
Crystalline grains of ambrosial food.
I know, but the song we started with tonight was called Crystalline.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow, right? Like, I don't know, but that was... What a book. What a book. Like,
neither did they melt the crystalline grains of ambrosial food that were melted easily.
At least I read it correctly almost, right?
No, you did. That was perfect. Nailed it. Bam!
Yeah. Sorry, I just over loudly into the mic. Yeah, I really, I have to say, I'm going to throw on the thumbnail as we talk here. I have to say, I kind of got a little bit high tonight on the scriptures. I don't know if anyone else did, but me and Jason aren't against using marijuana. We've never been. It's the actions the words that come out of your mouth are what defile you, not with what goes into your body. But I really did feel like I got high off this book.
Yeah, off the scriptures, yeah.
Did
beautiful.
you? Did you?
Talking about wisdom, yes. It brought tears. It brought tears up. I got emotional.
Yeah, me too. I wonder what the chat's saying. I see Judith Baz has joined us. That's nice. His daughter had put in the meaning of invulnerable, but she also applied saying that we need to be vulnerable because it shows. So invulnerable is incapable of being wounded, hurt, or damaged, proof against or an immune to attack. Invulnerable, not to open to denial or disproof. So I would like to say that that's got to be one of the most important things that the two witnesses have in their arsenal is the book that we just read. And if you want to be invincible, you better be acquainted with wisdom.
Yeah, you got to get to know wisdom. And there's two requirements for gaining wisdom. So if you missed it, go back, watch it again, watch it as many times as you need to. If you want wisdom, it's explained to you exactly how to get it. It's right here.
Did you want to say it again? Or do you have to go back to... No, we'll just leave it at that. Let's let people find it themselves. We can't always continue to... See, that's the thing. The search, the pursuit of wisdom herself is what gains you her. Right?
Yeah, there's got to be that doing. Without the doing, you'll never get the wisdom, because things have to be done. There's certain requirements in order to receive wisdom.
Right? Like, yeah. It doesn't, it's, I guess you could say it's similar to a man who pursues a woman. If he doesn't, ask her out, if he doesn't, message her or send her flowers,
if he doesn't say the right things, it's not going to go anywhere.
It's not going to work, right? It's a constant battle that has to be waged, and you can have a battle of love. The other things that I really liked in that scripture, I've the change of the word jealousy. So there is a righteous jealousy, right? Where, and I think that's been taken away from us, and I'd like to say that I completely understand the father's righteous jealousy towards his children, and I can understand certain mothers have that same, I guess, and fathers too, but it's a quality that I find in women a lot towards their children, right? I really respect it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, wisdom's got quite the, what would you call it? The bio. The bio on wisdom is just amazing. It's everything you can possibly ever want.
Yeah.
It can provide anything. So. Totally. Seek wisdom, seek wisdom. So this was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess everybody, thank you all for being in the chat. It's going to be an exciting week, right?
Yeah, we had great comments from like Globe Crusher. It seems like people enjoyed the scriptures.
Mimi was great.
Yep.
Yeah, was Donna, of course.
If you don't feel like you got it the first time and you know exactly how to gain wisdom, definitely go through it again. You can listen to it here. You can read it yourself. But yeah, keep soaking that in, because there's really nothing better to gain than wisdom.
Right. I'm wholly incapable of pronouncing my feelings towards wisdom. Mm-hmm. You could just say it's a mad love affair that I've had with her, and still do. Thank you to Bronick again, Yahawa's daughter. We also had Kimberly was saying some great stuff in the chat. We love you guys. Like, this is our family. Remember, they came to him and they were like, Yahawashi, your mother and your brothers are out there. And he was like, those who are with me are my brothers and sisters, right? So we truly feel that we do have a family connection here with each person that puts their time into the channel. Now, it's not always going to be an easy one, because Jason's pretty hardcore for the truth, right? So,
what are you talking about?
Your middle name's Dogmatic, okay? So, just let everybody know that we want, if there's people that are listening that stuck through this, thank you so much. And you should get involved in the chat. Leave a comment below the video. Share, like, subscribe if you haven't. We don't do any donations, but our goal is to be comforting sometimes, and to make sure that we're always giving everyone the warnings, because we feel that we've been called as witnesses and watchmen to the truth, and that's what we fight for in love. And again, in my own time, I pray for each and every one of you. I always am trying to pray for the righteousness that are in mankind. All mankind, not just specifically one or another. I try to take things to a big scale. We don't really do it a lot live, because in secret is where your true power is, inside your heart. It can't be spoken in groups. It can be, but the true power lies within each and every one of you. I'll let you say the last words, Jay. We're probably going to be live. We don't know if it's going to be the election night. We don't know if there's going to be an asteroid tomorrow, but we're ready. We're prepared for anything that might come up, and I'm looking forward to it. You got the last words, bro.
I don't know. You nailed it. So we'll see you soon, everybody. Go Team Yahawashi.
tonight. Helicopters against the moonlight, our holy mother of the midnight. And if we live forever, let us live forever tonight.
All glory to Yahweh through Yahawashi. Eyes to the skies.